Hey, what's up? Well, I'm making another video and I might schedule this one to come out at a slightly later date, not by much, because in this video I would like to talk about something that is coming up next month, and I want to title it Teacher Appreciation Week. And one thing I'd like to discuss, let's see, before I go any further, is about the weather. About that formula that I said for the weather. I was saying how the lowest temperature, I'll put that graph up here that I made of how our weather usually is. See, I'm trying to move this in a better place. Of how our weather, you write in the first 6 months of the year, you write the month, so that if it's January, you'd have a 1. You multiply it by 10, and then you add 5. So 15 degrees in January would be about the coldest cold front at night that I can possibly imagine. About 15 degrees, so definitely a hard freeze. Okay? And so February would be 25, and so on. And May, you'd skip ahead all the way to 55 in the mornings at the beginning of May. Okay, and that is amazing when you have 55-degree weather in early May. Well, so you get to June, and about 65 at night, making you not want to swim anymore. Is about the coldest night you could have if it rained a lot. Okay, but then you get to the last 6 months of the year, and the rules kind of change. Okay, so you get to July, and you'd have the number 7. Okay, well, the formula obviously has to change, because you would keep going up, and that doesn't work for the last 6 months of the year. But, so you'd say 14 minus the month, 14, and put a 0. Okay, so, the coldest weather you can possibly have is approximately 14 minus the month number times 10. Okay, and so then August, you could get down to about 60 by the end of the month. Okay, so then you get to December, and about 20 degrees. 20 degrees around Christmas. You could easily have snow and a hard freeze. By the end of November, you could easily be in the 30s. October, being in the 40s around Halloween is an amazingly cold Halloween. Very exciting. Getting down into the 50s in September is exciting too. So anyway, I'll put that. And the thing about the high temperatures is that it is never impossible to get to 80 degrees in the summer in the daytime. So I'll put that graph. So it's always 80. 80 is always possible, but it stays at about 80, through the winter time. But in the summertime, the highs peak later than the lows, so that in August it could be 110 easily. And it cools off a bit faster in the autumn than it warms up in the spring. Okay. So anyway, what I'd like to talk about in this video is Teacher Appreciation Week, and how, I did not know it in 97, but that unforgettable cold that I had happened during what is now Teacher Appreciation Week. I don't know if it was that in 97, the first full week of May in 97. I don't know if it was Teacher Appreciation Week, but that right there, I think Teacher Appreciation Day might be that Monday or something. So Cinco de Mayo was Teacher Appreciation Day. And even if it were not so unforgettable, this cold in 97, the fact that it happened during what is now Teacher Appreciation Week, the first full week of May, just further cements the memory in such a way that I could never forget, even if I wanted not to remember. Because, had the fact that, I had been telling everybody that I didn't get sick and I was a space alien. And then I get sick, so it's almost like, I don't know, those teachers really enjoyed, I guess, seeing me suffer, even though I'd missed Friday, May 2nd. So, it's just so unforgettable. And I was just thinking some more. I just can't stop thinking about it. It's like I remember so much about that last cold in 7th grade in May of 97, yet so little about, the ones in April and then after Memorial Day in the 6th grade. And then in 8th grade, I think that last one in April. So I'd already had 9 colds by April of my 8th grade year. And at that point in my 7th grade year, you see, May was, I think, the only month that I did have a cold in 7th grade, but didn't in the 8th. You know what I'm saying? Because my 7th grade year was the best in junior high. I only had 4 colds. That was my record low in junior high. But in 8th grade, that was my record high because of my sister going to kindergarten. But the few months in 8th grade where I didn't have cold were October and May, I'm pretty sure. And, it's amazing how as of April 30th in 7th grade, I'd only had 3 colds right before I got that unforgettable 4th one. But in 8th grade, by that point, I had had 9. And that's why I didn't get another one. And I didn't get one as early in the 9th grade. I didn't start getting them until September as opposed to August, for the first time in a long time. And so, I guess I'd had 3 times as many in the 8th grade, as I did in the 7th at that point. So I had over twice as many. But I was just thinking about how what's amazing about these numbers of colds is how it was just so, yeah, the graph was bumpy, but the thing about it was that, my record lows of each stage of development, so to speak, like I said, I don't know much about elementary school, but it was at least as bad as junior high on average. So in junior high, I had been getting almost 7 colds a year, with my record low being 4 in 7th grade. Well, wouldn't you know that in high school that became my average, 4.5. And I think I did have a subclinical one in 7th grade, so it's an average. Yeah, I had a subclinical one in April, right before that really bad one in May, which what I've learned is that sometimes, the incubation period for a cold can actually be longer. It could be like the next day, you could be exposed and then come down with it the next day, or it could be as much as 2 weeks, like chicken pox. See, that's something they didn't really know until recently. So I may have actually been exposed to it in April. Well, I know I was because May 1 was day 1. So it may have been mid-April when I was actually exposed, but then started coming down with it in May. And that subclinical one in April might have been like a prelude. Another thing I've noticed is that I'm more likely to get them around the new moon. Like when it's the full moon, for some reason I'm less likely to have cold. And it was around new moon, this time in May. And so it's like, just certain things make it unforgettable, but yet other colds, it's like I really have a hard time remembering the date. So yeah, it's like, but my record lows, like, now it's possible in elementary school I could have had a year with 4 colds, but I know I never had a year with less. You know what I'm saying? The best I did in elementary school was just as good as 7th grade, with maybe 4 colds. But I don't remember, that it was necessarily that low ever. I just know that kindergarten was really bad, and so was 1st grade. But, the thing about it is that, like, when I look at that graph, I notice that my record lows in each, like, previous stage of my education would become my new average. Or my record highs were more like my previous average, and my record lows would become my new average. So, like in high school, my average was about 4 colds, 4 plus, 4 or 5. Okay, in seventh grade, I had had 4. That was my record low in junior high. Okay, and my record high in high school was like my average in junior high, about 6 or 7. And so then the same thing happened in college, wherein my record lows of high school would be about 3 my senior year, 2.5. Yeah, I guess 2 of them were bad, one of them was mild. So 2 to 3 was like my best year of high school, my senior year. And guess what? I get to college, and that's my overall average. Okay, and then my record high in college was, of course, 4. So I was getting about 1 to 4, like the national average. That was the only time in my life when it was average. Um, and so, the record high was more like the average in high school. And then after college, once I graduated college, it's like my new record low was 1, 1 cold in 0506 was my lowest number that I ever had in college. Well, guess what became my new norm once I graduated college was to get almost 1 or approximately 1. So it's like it went down, like I stated before, by 2 colds per year each time I would graduate out of that type of education, from junior high, which is just a higher level of elementary, then high school, then college, and then after college. And, so my new record low was 0 beginning at age 27. And so, it's like my record lows would become the norm of the future. My record highs would be like the norm of the past. You know what I'm saying? My highest number of colds that I got after leaving college was about 2 in a calendar year, and 2 to 3 had been my average in college. So, it's just an exponential drop, whether my parents want to accept that or not. So, anyway, it just never ceases to amaze me, and I can never forget the date. And like that one in October of 2004, I can never forget that because that was the first time that I ever went to school during a fall semester of college. Okay, having to deal with a cold at school, go to class with it in a fall semester. The first fall semester one having been when my grandmother passed away, and so we went to the funeral, and I was absent for that reason. So I'll never forget those 2 autumn colds of my college days. And then November of 2006, because there really weren't that many autumn ones. You know what I'm saying? It was normally the spring, like one during a fall semester. So basically, in elementary and junior high, I was getting 1 at the beginning and end of each 6 weeks, about 7 colds a year, 6 or 7. And then in high school, I was getting like basically at least 2 per semester on average. So basically 1 during each of the 4 seasons, and then 2 during winter. Then in college, I was averaging basically 1 in a fall semester, 2 in a spring semester, which is like every season except summer, no longer getting them at the beginning of the school year. And then after college, I started averaging 1 or less, meaning a little over a year between colds. And usually just 1 during some part of the school year. So that's where I am today. Anyway, and I've talked way too long about that. The other thing I wanted to talk about while I have this is how to draw braids, which I wish I'd learned that. There's just so many things I wish I'd learned, say, 20 years ago. But when you draw braids, there's a very simple way to draw it. You make a zigzag line, and then you make these, like, you hug those zigzags basically with heart shapes. So it's like this and like this And so, you know, that's kind of ugly, but you get the drift. It's like you make a zigzag with hearts for braids. So, you know, practice makes perfect. So anyway, I just want to talk about that. And last thing, in my other video, I talked about the Archie dolls and the unboxing, but yet I never got around to actually showing, you know, the advertisement for them back in the 70s. So I'll go ahead and post this video and show that.